Hi, this is John Saltas again with Ron Yengich, and I got to tell you, Ron, I was just walking around downtown, and somebody reminded me of something that I used to do like religiously on Friday nights. I was in school, and that was go down to the Blue Mouse Theater. Did you ever go down to the Blue Mouse?
Went down to the Blue Mouse Theater a lot, and they used to have Marx Brothers movies there, and I loved it.
I know. I saw all the Marx Brothers movies, and those kids would just howl at the moon. But they also did, and this was... the Blue Mouse, the theater itself was originally a place where people would go in the movie business to watch films and see if they wanted to have them at their place, at their theater. They would I don't remember the term for it, but they would screen there.
Right.
So it wasn't a big theater. But they also did black and whites of all kinds, and including almost every week it seemed like King Kong.
Yeah.
And do you remember this? Yeah. And so I was walking by and talking about that, and I got reminded of it. And I was thinking about King Kong and that... memorable scene, Kong going up with the woman in her hand and the best special effects of the day, and those planes flying by what do they call it, two-wing airplane,
biplanes, yeah.
Bzzz, and she's screaming. And do you know who the woman in the arms of King Kong was?
I know. She was an actress named Fay Wray.
Fay Wray, tribute shout out to women of Bingham, Utah. Now, this is a little-known fact, but Fay Wray lived in Lark.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Lark. And Lark wasn't in part of Bingham Canyon per se,
right?
But it was the Bingham mining district, so the Lark kids attended Bingham High School and that kind of stuff, and their fathers worked in the mine and so on. But Fay Wray is a native of... So now we have Bingham guys and gals.
Right. I truly did not know that, and that... I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, she's like 1914 or so, like a little bit before us.
Yeah.
But everybody knew Fay Wray when she was one of the early sex symbols of the day.
Right, a beautiful woman. Can I digress for 1 second about the Blue Mouse?
Sure. Yeah.
I represented some police officers that were accused of bank robberies, and 4 guys got arrested. 3 police.
Let me get this straight. Usually, if you take up the oath to swear justice, you typically don't rob banks. You're saying
well,
these guys...
you don't. I mean, but they were convicted. I mean, and all this. But yeah, I mean, you normally don't do that. But and I forget the year, but it was in the 80s, early 80s, and there were a number of bank robberies around that had the same modus operandi. And it turns out there were 3 police officers and another guy that worked as a projectionist at the Blue Mouse. And so they got popped, and I represented one of them. And so the U.S. Attorney's Office that prosecuted them came to me and said, look, we know there's still a lot of money out there. And there are other lawyers representing the other 3, but we were approaching the case together, and they said, look, we believe your client. I had the projectionist. We believe your client knows where the money is.
Well, the projectionist is the lead anarchist, right? And that's Marx Brothers. That's where you got the idea.
That is right, yeah. But this was in real life. And so ultimately what happened is they said if they return the money, we don't care who it is of the 4 of them, we are going to lower their sentence if they'll return the money, whatever is left. And they said, so if you'll tell us where it is. And so I talked to my client, and other guys talked to their clients. And to make a very long story short, or what's becoming a long story, we agreed that we would see that. But we won't tell you where we're going to get the money. No, I said, no, I mean, you just have to trust us. I'm going to go get it. You have to trust me. I'm going to go get it, and I'm going to bring it to you on such and such a day. And there was a reason for that, and there was nothing bad about the reason, but there was a specific reason. And so we met with the client, and he told me where it was and how to get to it. And where it was
popcorn machine.
No, it was at the Blue Mouse, but it was they had like these little tunnels underneath the Blue Mouse.
Huh.
And so I got directions to go in and get it, and there was a satchel full of cash, and this was before cell phones or anything, and I walked back, and I took it to the federal marshal that I really trusted, a guy named Dan Dobbs and Jerry Smith, because they were the ones that they were the ones that were insisting that they return the money, and gave them the money, and that's how we ended that case. But that's in the Blue. That's a Blue Mouse story.
That's a wonderful building with a lot of history. That had upstairs was a cosmic airplane,
Yeah,
and all
cosmic
those kind of things.
airplane,
It's having a revival of sorts. That little stretch
yeah.
there. Anyway, Blue Mouse, sex goddess from Lark, Utah, of all places. Not known for very many other things up Lark, other than we had a lot of buddies from there.
My cousins, the Watsons.
The Watsons were your cousins, okay. My buddies, the Tabolas and
Yeah.
the Satos, and so many other kids. But, what else? Oh, well, she was a sex symbol of the time, and a later sex symbol was, we talked baseball last week.
Yeah.
And you might guess this one if I mention
Sure.
Yankees.
Yeah, Marilyn, Joe
Ah,
DiMaggio.
Joe
Marilyn,
DiMaggio.
Marilyn Monroe.
Right. Today's in 1962 is when they found her dead on this day
Yeah.
in Hollywood.
Really?
Of an apparent, is that the proper way to say it?
Yeah.
Apparent drug overdose with suspicious outlays that it maybe was
Made to seem like
she was helped to be induced
Yeah.
into taking a whole bunch of pills and alcohol and anything else and barbiturates and
No.
didn't wake up.
What a tragedy. Again, a personal story on that. We were vacationing, was it 62?
1962.
We were vacationing, the family was, on our way to Los Angeles. Because we'd go to LA every other year and go to Disneyland and go to San Francisco to see my aunt, my mother's sister. We were on the freeway early in the morning when that news was released. I'll never forget it. Listening to KFI Los Angeles, and they told this, the initial news report of Marilyn Monroe dying. And then when I read Joe DiMaggio's biography.
Those who don't know, Joe DiMaggio was married to Marilyn Monroe, delivered flowers to her grave till the day he died,
till the
basically.
day he died, exactly. And the love of his life, and she loved him. And but a really tragic thing. And of course, lots of people have been talked about being involved in it. Obviously, John Kennedy and Robert Kennedy likely were her lovers as well, and other people, and other men, including mobsters. And the whole circumstance around that is still interesting. Ties to today in a number of ways because, of course, Robert Kennedy's son is now involved in government and a total different guy. And also the idea that Donald Trump promised to release all of the Kennedy files during his first term, and made a point to say that he was going to release all of those files again. So all of us Americans, we've talked about Kennedy's assassination and the turning point in our generation's life, we would know what really happened. And of course, that hasn't been done yet either.
Well, he's probably not going to release those documents because he's got other ones that he should be releasing first. But, Marilyn Monroe was, the similarities are not that large of a stretch. A woman dies mysteriously in her sleep who has ties to politicians and mafioso, in other words, powerful men. And that rings a bit similar to the ending demise of Jeffrey Epstein and of other people in the circle of current politics, just all of a sudden aren't, what do they call them now, unlived? Have you heard that term?
Yeah, I've heard that term. I mean, Lord have mercy on my soul. All of these names, you can't use the word janitor, and somebody that is dead with a gun in their hand is now called unalived.
Yeah. So anyway, the similarities are there. I'm not saying it's the same crayon box, but I don't know if they're exactly the same situations. But they're people with secrets. They knew things that other people wanted information about or kept secret. And they didn't see in her case, her 37th birthday. She's very young.
The thing is that I think that they're extremely similar. And I mean, it's a historic fact that sex, particularly in these instances, are things that people want to hide about what they're doing and who they're with. And people in power have always preyed upon women like Marilyn Monroe. I read a biography of Frank Sinatra a long time ago. One of the things in that biography, the guy is very critical of Sinatra on a lot of things. But interestingly enough, because he was a womanizer, he was good to women. And Marilyn Monroe and Judy Garland were two women that he protected. and he protected with the force of the people that he knew.
Back in Jersey, those guys?
Those guys, yeah. And the guys that Don Rickles used to tease him about. And so, I mean, the idea that the whole thing with Maxwell and Epstein is unusual. I mean, it's a historic view into human nature that we have that involves a lot of violence and death and lying and cheating and hiding and stealing. And so it isn't unusual. And I think I didn't know you were going to bring this up, but I mean, that's a perfect segue into where we are today.
Well, it is, because people speak in almost all terms. I always have to explain it this way. Ron, I look across the table, I see you there, and I see the guy that knew Leger de Mon when I was 19 years old, and I still come like, wow. And no, I'm serious. I know you're looking at me like, you dumb Greek.
No, I
which you could say that because of where we're from. But,
well, but I wouldn't say that.
I know, but
I would say you dumbass. I wouldn't say you dumb Greek.
I know. Well, you have quite an ability to retain, absolutely read these things top end to end and remember and retain and so on. And I have to go a little bit different path. I just try to relate to what have I seen in life, and much of that is, my young life or the working life or the bar life or whatever. So I've seen the kinds of things like the Trumps before when I was a young guy, going, what the hell, how did this guy become president? Somebody should have kicked the shit out of him a long time ago. And I've seen women and fall into the traps, young and older, and misfortunately, succumb to scams and so on for the same stuff. So I don't have the book knowledge to know that this is what Socrates said. I do know that this has happened before, and it's going to happen again, and there's nothing new under the sun. And what happened to Marilyn Monroe is not very different than what happened to Ghislaine in the world of Ghislaine, and gone to prison for somebody else. And by the way, I don't think she went to prison for somebody else. I shouldn't put it that way. The somebody else was Epstein. She was equally guilty. She was a very culpable player in that whole deal.
She's a little bit different in that regard, and of course, I mean, affairs require two people, and so there's guilt to go around. The people like Marilyn Monroe were big. She was a big girl. I mean, she knew what she was doing, but she was used by these men.
She was used.
They were powerful men who had power,
right.
and a type of power that continued after that for a long time.
I don't like it at any point. What really makes it over the, not just over the waterfall, but over the cliffs, the largest waterfalls of all time, are when you abjectly debase minors, as those people did. And that's like, okay, stop. There's no logic to it. Quit explaining it. Throw the guy in jail and everybody associated with him.
Well, you're in the major leagues of hated crime. Even in prisons, those are the guys that get beat up in prison. I mean, face it. I mean, that's right or not. But I think that the leveling thing that brings them all together is that they are people that are doing things that at some level they know are wrong, so they've got to hide it. And their opportunity, and all of us have done things that we know are wrong. Okay, I'm raising my hand. You can't see me. But these are people that do it on a continual basis, and they use their positions of power, and they use the threats and the fear and the money and who they know to get other people to do things for and to and with them that they otherwise wouldn't do, and they know it. Well, and then they want to lie about it,
right,
and blame other people.
Well, in the world of man and woman, the objectification of it is the sexual part of it. But those same men wield the same kind of power over other men.
Sure.
And that overriding ability of those kind of people to get their way, to make themselves believed, to think that by my associating with them, I get some benefit, warranted or not, makes them have a power over me that over other people. I refuse to let it happen. I won't let the Donald Trumps of the world have power over me.
But they do, because he's president now. He does have an involuntary power over all of us.
Involuntary is one thing. I get it that he can sign a document. I do not get it. I will not get it. I won't go there. That I will follow him in any way, shape, or form. Otherwise, I'd be jumping off the White House roof today. He was up there saying he wanted to put nukes on top of the White House. That's just the latest bull. Like what? You understand how nuclear physics? You understand the power of an atom bomb, sir? Come on, give us. What is this? This passes for wisdom in certain circles in America. I don't get it. The theater and the drama. I'm not going there.
No, none of us are. But I'm just saying. I mean, and here's an example. So Maxwell, because I can never pronounce her first name, and I don't want to disrespect
Here's what we're going to do.
her.
We'll call her Ghislaine.
Ghislaine. Okay, we'll call her Ghislaine.
I think that's her name.
Okay, and I'll try to remember it.
Could be Ghislaine. They say it's pronounced like GIF or GIF.
But
which is it? I'm messing with you now, Ron. I'm sorry.
I know you are. And my point with Ms. Maxwell is this. She now has floated the idea that Donald Trump pardoned her.
Well, she floated it.
Well, she mentioned it a while back.
She wanted one, yeah.
Yeah, so just follow through with me on this one. So it isn't just men that can do this. She's playing a power game too, because she's saying, pardon me, and there may be benefits for you, Donald. And so people that play these games, these type of people that always get their way, that are rich and powerful and have connections, can look across metaphorically to the President of the United States and say, pardon me. And then he has to say, whoa, what can she say? And he may know some things and may not know others that implicate me in a subject that I threw out there that I thought was going to benefit me and hurt the other side. And so that's when you go down this path, this type of conspiratorial agreement between people, this is exactly what happens. And so we're now at a point where the President of the United States can actually pardon her and let her go. And they've already made a movement towards that because they've moved her from a higher level federal prison.
Have you ever seen this before?
Yeah, it happens all the time. And
from that type of crime.
Well, not from that type of crime.
I'm drilling down.
I'm talking to somebody that is maybe going to snitch on somebody else.
Okay.
That they move them. So they moved her to a lower level institution, which is going to be better for her. It's going to be away from others that may have access to her, and they're going to put her there. And that maybe is the first step that the Federal Bureau of Prisons has taken to maybe placate the President of the United States too. I don't know, but it sure looks like it to me. And then you say, so you're going to pardon her? Well, if he does that, if he is stupid enough and arrogant enough and crooked enough to do that, I think that a big part of his base, which is what he's worried about, is going to go, no, you can't do that. I mean, it's what we've talked about before about this case. This is different. These are kids. She was a principal.
Right.
And we'll see what happens with it. But I think if it's okay, I think this is a good point to give just a small discussion about pardons.
Yeah.
Can we do that?
Again, as you're going through there, I don't know much about him. I have a hard time figuring out what's the difference between a pardon and clemency. I don't know, what's the difference between Trump pardoning people and Biden did his own pardons, including his own son. What's the basis for this? We all get the biblical forgiveness kind of portion of it, and I don't think that that's necessarily where it's based. It could be, but in her case, I'm just kind of like. I'm always having to remind myself, in everything Epstein, everything Trump, everything Ghislaine, don't forget about the young women.
No.
That is the thing that seems to be too often forgotten here, and that's where somehow there's a magical line between the ages of 16 and 17 and that kind of stuff legally, but emotionally and so on, an abuse could happen anywhere and anytime, but a child, wow.
No, it's...
They are on record speaking, whether it was under, there's plenty of people out there talking about where Whose hands were on their bodies?
I think that it is true. I mean, historically, we've always had a division. We used to call it statutory rape. Common law in the English-speaking countries have always had these kind of laws, and there have been them in other societies as well. That's all. But it's also wrong for it with adult women too.
It is, absolutely.
And so we go there. But here's what's interesting.
Fine, let's go.
So the Constitution of the United States allows for, this is in Article 2, about the president. We're talking about the president here. He shall have power, or she now, he shall have power to grant reprieves and pardons for offenses committed against the United States, except in cases of impeachment. So a president, they made it clear early on when they passed this, and I'm going to read something from the Federalist Papers, that impeachments are outlined. You can't pardon yourself for an impeachment circumstance because you've committed a crime directly against the sanctity of the American government and your oath of office. But anyway, so he has the power to grant reprieves and pardons for offenses against the United States. So you can't pardon somebody for a crime that is committed in Utah that isn't a federal crime, but he can pardon them for a federal offense. This is a federal offense. He could pardon her. He can pardon P. Diddy, which now they're talking about, or Poop Diddy, as I like to call him. He can pardon him because he was convicted in a federal court. And so there are a lot of other people that are likely.
I bet you if you ran down a list of them, you'd find more than
more
half
than
a dozen that are sex offenders.
No, sex offenders, and certainly P. Diddy, and people that have committed violent crimes. He pardoned Lil Wayne, who had a gun conviction in Florida, and some other people that are supporters of him. Now, I read a little bit about Lil Wayne. I think he's known to be a pretty good guy, actually, but when he was young, he had that conviction. And most people can't get that. We've talked about federal pardons a little bit before. In my career, I got one from Jimmy Carter for a man, but none since that time. They're hard to come by. But anyway, so he has plenary power. That means it's up to him. No one has a restriction on that. The difference between what he can do is there are pardon and reprieve mean this. There are several types of pardons. There is an actual full pardon. That means if he gives you a full pardon, that it's as though the crime and the event never happened. Everything is wiped off your record. There are no civil penalties that go along with it. For example, your right to vote is taken away when you're convicted. Right to serve on a jury is. So those things are all restored. You have the same status you did before you were convicted or charged. Clemency is a little bit different. Clemency is something that is done. It isn't a full boat of a gift of somebody getting, in a sense, out of the problem. Clemency is reducing the sentence to a certain degree. I mean, when we think of clemency or a reprieve, we're talking about somebody whose sentence is reduced or eliminated, and they're allowed back into society.
Where did the J6 insurrectionists fall?
Some of them were given clemency, but some of them pardoned, as I recall. So, and in that regard, a president can give amnesty, and amnesty is a pardon or clemency to an entire group of people, a certain group of people. Obama did that with a number of people, particularly black and Hispanic kids primarily, that were convicted of drug offenses because of the differences between crack cocaine and powdered cocaine, because of the manner in which those convictions were handed down. And so you can give amnesty, you can commute something. Commutation is something that is done generally in death penalty cases, which is to say a person's sentence is commuted. That aspect of the sentence, the death penalty aspect of it, is commuted. So my point is, when we talk about pardon, it's all up to him. He can pardon dead people.
Like Spiro.
Well, Spiro Agnew,
The Greek.
I've got him here because President Ford denied to giving Spiro Agnew a pardon. He could pardon Mata Hari. He could pardon Tokyo Rose, the Unabomber, Son of Sam, Lizzie Borden. He could pardon literally anybody he wants to. He doesn't have to have any reason to do that. And technically, it can be for a political reason, which many pardons are. Bill Clinton pardoned some political friends of his. A lot of presidents have. And certainly Trump did. He pardoned Steve Bannon. So once he starts talking about pardons seriously, my point in this is there's nobody that can stop him, and he can do it, and he can say you can't do anything about it. So if he pardons her, that means that it's over. That case is over pretty much. As it
was it
relates to the
already
United States.
over? She was found guilty.
Well,
What's
it
not
was,
over?
But she's got her cases on appeal right now, and it's over because her right against self-incrimination reobtains, and the gravamen of that case, the sexual exploitation of minors and other people in the United States, is over with.
The
She can't
case
be
is over.
It's over. Yeah, it's done as it relates to her.
This is the thing. The evidence is not over. Whatever happened, if it happened, it's still there.
It's still there.
So what is this? Well, let's release the files, but expunge all of the references to my name, which means your name was in the files. It's pretty obvious, right?
Yeah, I mean, it isn't that arcane. I mean, her name can still appear in the files.
His name.
Or his name. Trump's, yeah.
But they are supposedly have been redacted.
Well,
thousands and thousands of references. Whether it's so or not, I don't know. I'm
so
not the FBI.
We're talking about two separate things, okay? We're talking about
her
being pardoned, and now you're talking
about
redacted names. It's common to get redacted names in discovery because there are some people, they might be snitches, they may be putative future defendants or stuff like that. Their names are taken out. There are ways for defense counsel to discover who they are. It makes it harder and more difficult to piece things together. But good journalists and good lawyers can do it. So we're talking about two different things.
Right, yes. What's funny, though, about that is, the rationale that I saw, this is on the files, not on Ghislaine, was, well, they've got to be redacted because, we don't want to reveal all these horrible things that may or may not have happened to young people, right? Meanwhile, there are the young people who were speaking up, they're not taking care of them today, are they?
No.
It's a baloney story that they even care.
Oh, whenever anybody tells you that they're doing something, somebody that has bad information about that they don't want it done to protect the victims, they're lying. Okay, they're lying. And in this instance, there are means of protecting them. They can go to them and say, do you want us to release your name? Are you prepared to tell your story? Well, they haven't done any of that. I mean, it's just a matter of, look how good of people we are. We don't want that to happen. When they've been calling for it all along. And I don't want to run this in the ground. Releasing the files is releasing an amalgam of evidence that would make Woodward and Bernstein puke. I mean, it will take a long time to go through it. It would be easy, however, for a grand jury to have a grand jury meet and issue a report on this case, including his death and everything else, because you can do that in the United States. And they can issue a report. They don't have to issue an indictment. Or they could just come out and tell the truth about the whole thing and back it up with the evidence that they have.
Well, I doubt that we're ever going to see the whole thing, but I'm again going back to just my simple cocktail wisdom. It's like I have no doubt whose names are in there. I have almost no doubt what crimes they committed, and I have absolutely no faith that people are willing to just forget that. They just, I mean, there's a whole bunch of people that won't forget that. They won't. They can't. They're somehow, no matter how far gone they're into the Trump tunnel, that they do have something left of them that says this is the Rubicon I can't go past. I forgave everything else. I forgave the convictions. I forgave the stories. I forgave the theft. I forgave the bank robbery, the crime, everything else. But this one, I'm not crossing.
Well, I mean, this is where we got to last week when I said, and you laughed at me, that, maybe Rupert Murdoch, that his conscience has been pricked.
Yeah.
And there's a double entendre there that Bill used effectively. And the fact of the matter is there are a lot of people like that. And so hopefully conscience will rise in this. That brings us to the final point about pardons. In the Federalist Papers, they discussed that very thing. The reason there was a discussion to have the President of the United States be able to issue pardon, but it would have to be approved by one of the other houses or a committee. And Hamilton wrote, he said this: the reflection that the fate of a fellow creature depended on his sole fiat, let it be, would naturally inspire scrupulousness and caution. The dread of being accused of weakness or connivance would beget equal circumspection, though a different kind. Earlier he says, if we have a committee, it's going to involve politics. But if it's one man or woman, the President of the United States, who we hold to a high degree moral integrity, he's not going to just hand out pardons like lollipops. He is going to be scrupulous in looking at who really deserves one. And here we get to the ultimate problem. Because whoever it is, you think Joe Biden was a crook? Okay. You think Barack Obama was? Franklin D. Roosevelt, Harry Truman? Fine. The fact of the matter is, we got to be careful who we put in that office, because they should indeed do what Hamilton said in Federalist Paper number 74. But we know the guy in the presidency today. Put those others aside. You can believe it. I'll argue that with you, or you can convince me. I know in my heart this guy doesn't meet that standard.
Not even close. Not even close. I've now just referred to him as Mr. Foot Wedge. But he's lived his life that way. And it isn't even about like, oh, the poor bastard. He can't, he can be nice. The guy's an old guy. Baloney. Done it his whole life. Every bit of the information that crosses his little sphere has to be the kind of information that flowers him. And so, if he gets a bad report from the Department of Economic
Labor
something.
Statistics, is that it?
Yeah. Fire her. And you know what? That woman that he fired had zero to do with that report. She read it.
She read it.
All she did was read it.
Yeah.
And I don't know what remains, because Doge tried to get rid of all of our departments and our sensibilities, but hundreds or thousands of people across all kinds of economic spectrums or whatever in our government was studying this, because it's so important to be right. And they can still make mistakes. She got the report 2 or 3 or 4 days max before that happened. She didn't revise it. She just said, here's what the numbers say. Donald Trump doesn't like the numbers. You're shit canned. That's like saying, look, you better get another pencil to write my score down and put one with an eraser on it, so if I don't like the score, I'm going to write a new score down. He lives his life to be adjusted to favor Donald Trump, period, the end. And whatever happens to Ghislaine, whatever happened to Epstein, or whatever happens to all of us for having faith in this guy, is all going to be centered on his whim.
Oh no, it's going to be about him ultimately, and we know that. We really do, on both sides of the political aisle and in the middle and on the fringes. We got to demand that people be honest and there be integrity in our politicians. And there's always been outliers. It's like I forget his name. He was an Irish politician from Boston who his actual slogan was "Never indicted." That was his political slogan.
Was that
he was the mayor? He was the mayor of Boston. But anyway, we deserve better in this country. We really do.
I think we're strong enough to overcome individuals, but we're not strong enough to overcome an entire party of the Republican Party that has acquiesced, except for a very few handful of men and women who are sort of breaking away on the edges of that iceberg. And the whole party to say whatever this man says is gold, look, the guy's kind of creepy to me. Mike Johnson, from the moment he entered nobody knew who he was until they had that 17 votes for speaker, and all of a sudden out of the shadows comes Mike Johnson. His first stop wasn't before the House of Congress. His first stop was Mar-a-Lago to visit the president, former president, I should say, who then for the next 2 years was really the de facto Speaker of the House from Florida, even though he wasn't elected. But this is a guy with some kind of apparent moral compass when you first meet him, and you find out, no, he's got a price tag. And he does, and they all do, and they fall into line. And I can't think of, and you may, Ron, again, I'll just defer to, you noticed that. When did the Democrats ever fall in line so 100% uniform to the malfeasant outcome of all Americans?
Well, I mean,
I get an issue here and there. Both parties have done an issue here or there. I get it.
I mean, if you historically,
but every issue?
No, not in every. Historically, though, I mean, there are people that are conservative authors who will tell you that that's exactly what Democrats did with Franklin Roosevelt. Okay, but it is different. We're comparing apples and cucumbers. I mean, whatever. But I refuse. This is where you and I banged heads. Yeah, the Trumpers believe that. They believe that he can do no wrong, and they're willing to excuse everything. I refuse to also not state that Democrats have done this too. Maybe not to the degree. And I think that part of the reason that we have trouble articulating some of this stuff is we did it with Clinton, and we've talked about that. We rolled over for Kamala Harris. No one to this day. I brought this in case we got to it. I got an email from Nancy Pelosi.
She's asking you for money.
She wants money, and she tells me why. And she's going to do this, and I'm one of her loyal supporters.
When?
And they received
even I haven't drawn that. I haven't done that.
50,000 donations this year from supporters. Well, you know what I want to know? What did you do with the money that you pissed away in the last election, Nance? Tell me that. Tell me where you and Kamala came out of this election where the Democrats got their asses kicked everywhere, and you didn't even know the country between Denver, Colorado, and
Chicago.
Even past Chicago to New Jersey. And now you telling me that I'm one of your best friends and give you money. I'm not giving you any goddamn money, and I would hope nobody else does too, until you tell us where that money is.
Well, none of
because it could be like the Blue Mouse. I could say send somebody down and get that money.
It's in the catacombs, Ron.
In the catacombs, and bring it up, and then use that.
Well, look, I get these texts all day long, every day. Hi, this is so and so. Send some money. And you're right. Where did the money go? But you know what? No, I don't think that we're parting on it so much. We both know both parties have done, strong arm.
Right.
Johnson was a strong arm politician.
Johnson was an old-fashioned strong arm Southern politician.
He didn't. In the case that's different is degree. Everything that Trump says is strong arm. It's actually not as much strong arm. It's the acquiescence of willingness to go along with it. Well, John Curtis in Utah, who was supposedly the last smart guy, elected to Senate in Utah, gave us some other hope. He's now rolled over. He's a piece of mush.
No.
Burgess Owens, my other rep, my House rep, he's claimed bankruptcy how many times and claims to know what's going on. He doesn't know shit from, Shinola on this stuff. And same as all of them, nor does Malloy. And so I'm just kind of annoyed that everything Trump says is golden. Man, Isaac Newton didn't have that track record.
No, you're right.
If the apple fell on his head, it didn't miss. If he was so damn smart, the apple would have missed him.
I agree with you. I just don't. I'm to a point I can't acquiesce. I guess this is where I am. Maybe for a time I was one of those people. Yeah, if the Democrats do it, good. Clinton is the one that began to really take me away from that. And also my recognition historically of the Dixiecrats and their attitude toward race. Okay, they're Democrats.
Yep.
But I think Trump and the people that are beholden to him for whatever reason are of a different genre. I think, And I think back of great Republican politicians like Everett Dirksen and the Tafts and Robert Bennett and good people that were historically very conservative, but they believed in America first. That they really did. They knew that if there was a real issue and it hurt America, they weren't voting in favor of that issue. But we don't have that with Donald Trump. We just have, I want it, so give it to me. And if not, I'm gonna have a grievance against you.
I'll make your life miserable if you don't.
Yeah,
I'll sue you if you don't.
I love Nancy Pelosi too. I love her story. Baltimore lady, father was a politician, all of that stuff. She's done great stuff. But Nancy, if you're listening, don't send me any requests for money. I'm not sending any money in.
Right. Well, it works on the other side for Donald because, we wonder what happened to like the press and so on. Part of it is this threat of lawsuit all the time. But here's why it works, is because he has got a bit of a bottomless pit. Did we talk about this last time in terms of financial recourse against these guys? They'd rather make a settlement than fight. And it's economic. It's not legal. It's not based on principle. They just want to get it past them and continue on. And maybe the next election cycle, somebody will come along, which is sort of like saying, well, if we outwait Attila the Hun, maybe it'll get better. But then here comes Hitler. No, you have to stop this stuff.
I'm appalled that people are all over. I was talking to a friend about this the other day. I bumped into him walking the dog up at the Capitol. He's a prosecutor. I won't say what his name is because I haven't cleared saying this. And we were talking about this very thing. Our complaint was, where is the various bar associations? Where are the legal power groups? And there is power there. They got money too. The real movers and shakers within the legal community, the people at the University of Utah, the Quinney College of Law, my alma mater. I haven't heard any of them speak out about anything. I haven't heard the Bar Association say a thing about this. I haven't heard the president of the bar, who's a very good woman, stand up and say, we've got to talk about this if nothing else, because everybody's afraid. And as a defense attorney who stood up for people that lots of people hated a lot, okay, and received death threats, the idea that the people that actually have money and power are unwilling to do that.
Because they have money and power, Ron. Whenever it has come to something divergent that caused real change, those aren't the people. We're depending on them because they've been our voices through the peaceful times. But every time something really hit the fan, that's something that rhymes with zit, when it hit the fan, it wasn't the rich and powerful that made the change. It was the lowest of the low. It was your grandparents and mine. It was somebody else's before them. It was the people who had nothing to lose that stood up and said, we are fighting back. We're not going to take this as our answer. We're going in Utah, we are throwing that's not the right, we're arresting and putting into prisons how many, quote unquote, illegal citizens, migrants of any, whatever, daily. There's a quota, it was a quota of 3,000 a day. And I just saw some report, we're not even close to that. So all these billions of dollars that we've found to arrest these people, to throw these guys in prison, isn't really effective. But what will be effective is not for those people, and they're scared, Ron, they're scared. And Americans that are even wanting to side with them are afraid because they might lose a house payment or something by supporting them or whatever. They won't show their names. They might not be as whatever financially. But when it will change is when those people that are being sent home actually either stay home or don't show up to work. In the early 1900s, the ethnic groups, the mining groups, the blue-collar groups, the miners, everybody, they took up arms.
Yeah, well,
they took up arms, and that's what changed. It probably shouldn't. I'm not advocating for that, but that's where it stopped. And it took something. There was probably years of our similar kind of angst being spoken back then. It's lost to time in history. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? And then all of a sudden, those guys said, enough.
Well, there's a lot of truth in that, but there's a problem, and that is our Declaration of Independence says when government, by the way it is treating people, shows that it doesn't care about the rights. I'm not quoting it exactly. I don't have it in front of me. Then you have a right to overthrow the government.
I'm not advocating that. I'm saying that it can't be just, let's just wait it out.
Well, no, I don't think, don't take what I said as me, we should wait it out. Just the opposite. It is there are people, each one of us has a voice, and each one of us can do what we should, and each group should do what we want. From my part of the side of the aisle, the Archbishop in San Bernardino, California, did something and it surprised a lot of people, because the Catholic Church in that part of the state of California is predominantly Mexican. All right, a lot of Hispanic people go. He gave everybody a indulgence and said, you don't have, if you're afraid to come to church because you're afraid that ICE is going to be out of the church on Sundays, you've got an indulgence. You don't have to worry about that being a sin. That's something simple. But when I saw that, I go, okay, yeah. You didn't buy an advertising, but basically what you said to Trump and ICE is up yours. You're not going to come to my church and arrest people. And then there have been other instances, and not just in the Roman Catholic Church, but other churches have done similar things. Everybody has their own way to do it. Even if it is to put up, I've got on my fence a thing to resist the 1% that is controlling everything. A simple statement to make somebody think. Guns and threats have to be the last and hopefully never the resort. I want to read something, if I can, to bring this part to a kind of an end and see what you think. I read it this afternoon. I was just waiting for the time to run. Authoritarianism truly suffocates truth by rigid exterior discipline. It arrests lawful initiative and is incapable of listening, for it confuses inflexibility with firmness. And that is exactly what's happening in this country. Paternalism is a counterfeit paternity. It takes its objects into custody in order to preserve its power of authority. It makes its liberality felt by everyone, meaning liberality using its power over everything, felt by everyone, including those people we were just talking about, but fails to respect the rights of its subordinates. It speaks in a tone of protection and refuses to accept collaboration. That's what's happening in this country right now. And that was written in about 1956, 57.
McCarthy era or post?
Yeah, but it's in that whole area. It was in the era where Russia was not our buddy, that Putin was just a good guy. They were the people that believed that they were going to take over the world by force. That was in the Communist Manifesto. That was written in reaction to that, but also in reaction to the Nazi power of World War II by a man who experienced it as a diplomat. And he wrote that when he got kind of into an argument between two separate people carrying those two ideologies.
Well, the simplest thing in that statement, I don't know who authored it, that just rings with me, was it said, incapable of listening.
Right.
That little three-word little phrase is so true right now. Most Americans, and I'm not saying it lightly, I think it's pretty true, are incapable of listening now. We've picked our sides. We choose our flag. We, whatever's flying in our neighborhood, we make judgments about them immediately. We don't hear anything else. We only filter into us what we want to hear. That's not listening. If we were just channeling into one topic all the time and getting that information.
And also listening to who we consider to be
we're not collaborating.
Yeah.
We're not party to that. And every time I sit with somebody, even whether it be text, phone call, sit over a campfire, or even over like cookies, like I did with my daughter. She raised some money the other day for Gaza, for the children of Gaza.
We're going to talk about
I hope so.
Again.
But we got to, when you sit and talk with people and can rationally talk with people, you make progress. But most people aren't listening. They won't listen. And they only hear it their way. Because they only want the outcome to be the outcome that they were promised, in this case, by Trump, I think. Like I keep on referring to MAGA not as a giant movement. It's a movement of coalitions that all get a piece of something from Trump, and when they get their piece, they're all happy. Marjorie Taylor Greene got hers until she wasn't happy, and somebody else got theirs until they weren't happy, and somebody else is going to make money until they're not happy, and all this kind of stuff, and it falls apart. And that's what's happening to that big giant coalition called MAGA that's ruined the Republican Party, ruined American conservatism. Hopefully it can come back. Well, maybe pieces of MAGA can be salvaged even to make even the likes of two old guys like us to say, they got a point.
No.
But until that day comes where the listening part is before the reward, it's just not going to be.
The reward ultimately is intended to be doing what's right for the entire country.
There you go.
And for the world. And the guy that did that is one of my heroes. And he grew up just like my grandparents and yours.
Who did write it?
I'm telling you.
Okay.
But I'm going to take my way of doing it.
I thought
in northern Italy, he was one of 13 children of a peasant farmer. And
if this is Jeopardy, I'm not getting it
because
I'm going to miss this one.
I'm going to get there, but he was indeed ultimately became a very powerful man for a short time. He was a diplomat during World War II in Greece and in Turkey, and then ultimately in France. And he wrote that because of a diplomatic problem when he was the Vatican diplomat to France between the communists in France and the people that were in the middle and the far right in France. It was
Did he become a pope? I was going to just
Pope
say
John the 23rd, and he was considered when he became pope. Well, he's just a stupid peasant. He was far from that, and he wrote that at that time, and that applies across the board. And he was a guy that believed in just what you said. You gotta talk and you gotta listen. We've stopped that. But he also saw what power could do and how power could cause the Holocaust. It could cause all of the death in Russia. It could cause world war and ultimately maybe an atomic war.
Well, let's move on to the bit here of just the same thing, though, Ron. You and I have read it over and over again. A couple things are kind of in common. The Democrats don't have a voice as one right now, a loud voice. They don't have a leader. We've said we support all of our Bingham values and blue collars and all that kind of stuff. But we've said in every time, honesty, truth, values matter. And I think that just needs to be echoed and echoed and echoed because certain parts of our today's society, it's not being heard and it's being sold out. So let's do that. And part of honesty and all of that makes us even better is compassion.
Yeah.
And, what was it, October 6th or 7th, 2 years ago when Israel, attacked Palestine. And a lot of people were at that time hedging their bets as to who you're going to, am I going to support Israel, the lifelong supporter of Israel? Will I be called an anti-Semite if I don't? Am I going to be regarded as a pro-Palestinian murderer of some kind if Hamas, pro-Hamas? But the past 2 years have borne out that laying back and not making choices early on are costing lives by the thousands and thousands and thousands in Gaza.
Yeah.
And forget good and bad for just a minute. What's his name? José. What's his name? The chef, the famous chef that raised all the money. God.
I don't know.
Bill's going to have to Google that one real quick and flash it to us. But my daughter Eleni did, little. You were invited. A little bake sale in the backyard the other day. She made thousands of dollars.
Yeah,
selling freaking
Tell him
cookies.
Who it was for.
It was for the children. It went to his cause. And look at me, the father of Eleni, can't think of the dang name. I used to be really good at Jeopardy questions. I'm not right now.
Well, you failed today. I know.
It took me 22 clues to get to Pope John Paul the 23rd.
Yeah, John the 23rd. and so you flunked that because you had a call. But it's okay.
But he is he's won awarded, accoladed everything humanitarian. And you shouldn't win an award like that. You don't win a Medal of Honor. You're provided that honor to have gotten it. So I think Bill he's about, I knew both those names. I just didn't know the order to put them in. José Andrés.
Okay.
So to his cause, she made a donation just by, little thing in our backyard. It was actually pretty cool. It was way cool, in fact, and it was very enjoyable. But the fact that she did and other people are, and awakening to the fact that suffering is not acceptable. There are other things that are more valuable to all of us. And very few things are more valuable. When a child suffers, when families die, when people going through food lines are gunned down, my God, who are we?
Well, who are we? And and you used the word that's a great word, compassion, from the Latin passio, to suffer, and calm, with. So when you have compassion, it means you're suffering with somebody. You see them.
Yeah.
You have empathy for them. And what Eleni did was good. She didn't just make a little bit of money. She made a good chunk of money. And the fact of the matter is, when I constantly say there are things that we can do, that's an example of it. You don't have to agree with everything. When October 6th happened, I said this to my granddaughter. I said, this is exactly what Netanyahu was waiting for. This is what he wanted.
He got a hall
They
pass.
gave him what they wanted. And you know what? Hamas deserves to be destroyed. But he's going to destroy and kill all the Palestinian people. And he won't back off. And once again, to take it where we get to always in America now, Donald Trump was going to stop that war in a week. As soon as he got elected and was sworn in, it was going to be over. And Bibi
He's averaging one closed sale, one war deal a month now, but not that one.
Yeah, but Bibi Netanyahu played him like a lute and still is doing so. And America is being taken down in part in the world's eye because of it. Netanyahu is a crook and a liar and a thief of people's lives. And there is a better way to do it. And people in Israel are saying this. I listened to a great CLE of a gentleman who is a pro tem professor at the University of Utah College of Law who is on this subject like a coat of paint. And what he says about all of us that don't speak out about what's going on in Palestine, this man's a Jew who lives in Jerusalem. He says that we are bystanders, and being a bystander is just the same, I'm paraphrasing, as being an enabler. So we've got to speak out against Netanyahu. And you can speak out against Netanyahu, and you can speak out for the Palestinian people and still hate and speak against Hamas and jihadists who also kill with impunity. And there's a way of being able to do that. And what Eleni did
still be pro-Israel too, pro-Israel at the same time.
Yeah, and what Eleni did is awesome.
Yeah.
And I've got my bag of cookies right here.
Yeah, you do. Well, look.
And I'm sharing them.
We should probably, what we used to say at the Hill, it's time to tie it up, right? Tie it up.
Tie it up.
But here's what this is funny that you brought that in, because it'll tie back to the beginning. And we'll leave this as a trivia question, and whoever answers this one, and my God, I should be able to answer easily. Doesn't need a big, long search. What do Bibi Netanyahu, Ghislaine Maxwell, and Epstein all have in common?
They're Jewish.
No. Well, they may be, but that's not the answer we're looking for.
Okay. What do they have in common? They're friends of Donald Trump.
Well, the conspiratorial theory is, and I'll reveal this, and whoever calls me out on it can go right ahead, but the conspiratorial theory is it's all tied into espionage, compromise, big power, big money, how to link this. But they were all together. I didn't even know this about Ghislaine Maxwell. Her father was a operative.
Yeah, I read that too.
And Epstein was something in there as well. And Epstein and Bill Barr ties in. I mean, my God, what loops we have going on here. We won't go down that rabbit hole. Shall we not?
Let's not. But let's just leave them. Their own individual crimes are sufficient for us to look at them and say, we don't want anything to do with you.
Right. I don't want anything to do with them. I don't. Not for a moment.
Okay. What have we learned today, John? Let's sum it up here. Number
Well,
one.
the biplanes can take down King Kong.
All right,
If you try hard enough, just think of the analogy there. A biplane is equal to a guy on the street these days.
Number two. Don't give any money to Nancy Pelosi or anybody else.
Any of them.
And
don't buy Bitcoin. Don't buy the Trump Bible. just stop. Feed your family.
And number three, do stuff or support stuff like John's daughter did, so they can help people. If one baby gets saved by that money, then you've done the right thing.
Well, she's a gem. She's a sweetheart, and I hope and I know that there's many others going on, and we would always be quickly to share credit. But for anybody who has compassion, honesty, empathy, all of those things, are those also Latin words?
Yeah, I think empathy is actually a Greek word, isn't it?
Pathos.
Yeah, pathos. Yeah.
So, Ron, till the next buzzing biplane flies overhead.
Okay. Thank you, Johnny.
Okay.
That was fun.